for chapter 8. This is control of the cell cycle. So this is more interesting, I think, now than ever because of a certain disease. And we're learning so much about it because of this disease. So why is knowing about how the cell controls its cell cycle? How the cell all of a sudden decides it needs to divide, or is cell that was going to divide stops dividing. So all this control. Why do you think this is so important for us to understand right now? What? Yeah, cancer, you guys, right? All of us are affected by cancer in one way or another. All of us know somebody that's had cancer, fighting cancer, or we've lost from cancer. Even sometimes some of my students could have cancer. Thankfully, it is extremely rare, but it has occurred. So it's important for fighting this disease, this understanding. So what it says right here is the controls that regulate the order and timing of cell cycle events are of major interest to scientists who study the eukaryotic cell cycle. So not just for cancer, but also just for understanding, because these are our cells, and that's what biology is studying, life. And life is made up of cells, okay? Now, what's so cool is some scientists are like treasure hunters, problem solvers, discoverers. They have to figure stuff out. And lots of times they have to figure stuff out, like invent things, to be able to figure out the problem they're trying to solve. So this one scientist was interested in this, and he was, as the cell was developing and going through a life cycle, he was taking those cells that were all in the same stage, so maybe they were in interphase, or maybe they were in mitosis, and he was smashing them up and extracting the chemicals that were in them. And he noticed that sometimes, depending on the stage of, basically like the age of the cell, it had these chemicals that it didn't have during other times. So if you look at this graph, GO, G1, you don't have any of these chemicals that are labeled with the blue line or this red one. You do have some of these yellow chemicals, and in between G1 and S, you have this other chemical that popped up. And so by him just extracting these chemicals throughout the cell cycle, he realized that there was these patterns. There were these special molecules that popped up when a cell was doing this particular thing and seemed to disappear when it did it. So he called them cyclings because they cycled. They came up and they went away. They came up and they went away. Now, this might sound weird, but if you think about it, in our life stage, do you guys at different stages, do you guys produce chemicals that you don't at other stages of your life? Right? Like, what about hormones? Testosterone, the male hormone, the female hormone, estrogen. By the way, you guys do realize that we have all of them. We make them all. Males just make more of one and females make more of another. You guys got that out of health, I hope, or will get that out of health. Okay, so then chemicals do go in ups and downs in our lifespan too. Does that make some sense? Okay, now, it follows this pattern. There's been tons of research on this. So then we're thinking, okay, if these chemicals seem to show up right before the cell starts to divide, or when the cell is dividing, these chemicals are always present. The cell stops dividing and this chemical's there, or this chemical's not there. So the scientists figured out that these chemicals have something to do with the cell cycle. So then they ended up realizing oh, come on. Did I skip too many? Nope, I'm good, right? Okay, so they ended up finding out that some of the chemicals are when chemicals come together. So for example, here you see this thing they called kinase. And then here's one particular cycling, the cyclings. Okay? So here you can see this on the graph when there's a bunch of this hanging out on the cell. Why did it seem to disappear? Because it actually bonded to that. So then the molecule was not recognizable anymore. This also was not recognizable, but this bigger molecule was recognizable. So it's like it came out of nowhere. Well, no, the scientists figured out that they bonded together, and then that chemical does something really important. It helps these enzymes be made that will then, the enzymes like DNA polymerase or RNA polymerase, we'll get to these other ones, that makes an enzyme that allows for the DNA to make some proteins. And then the proteins are necessary for the cell cycle to happen. For the DNA to be copied, we need a bunch of DNA polymerase. That's a protein. It's an enzyme. So for the cell membranes to be made, we need more proteins being made. For the cell wall to be made, right? So you do not need to have this slide memorized. I just wanted to show you what they figured out. You do need to know that cyclins, these chemicals, go ups and downs in the cell cycle and regulate the cell cycle. We have not figured it all out. Are there chemicals we're missing? Do we not understand it? Definitely. Okay, but they're getting closer. Now back to cancer, because this is important. If we could figure out what chemicals the cells are making that are stopping them from continuing to reproduce, or can we find the chemicals that are making them reproduce, and can we screw with those chemicals so they don't work anymore? So see how this chemistry here of we can possibly control these bad cancer cells and control the cycle. Would that be wonderful? Okay. Now, do you guys remember seeing cancer cells? Do you remember on Cells Alive? Do you remember when you guys did that on the computer, the internet website, Cells Alive? The cancer cams, right? Now they're called. Do you guys remember the cells that you saw? Did they look like nice, pretty, roundish animal cells? I kind of tried to draw a picture up here. But when you guys were looking at nice animal cells for the cell theory lab, they kind of look like this a little bit, plump, right? Did they kind of look more goofy and stretched out and elongated when you guys looked at the cancer cells? Anybody with me on this? You guys remember? I know I just made this up. It's just from my memory. But did the cancer cells look like messed up cells? This is because they're dividing too fast. It's like the minute the few seconds their daughter cells are made, they don't hang out in G1 like they're supposed to. They go straight to S and they divide again. So they don't make all the other neat structures they need. They are just overwhelmed, consumed with dividing. Okay? So that is all about the cell cycle. Cancer is a disease of uncontrollable cell growth. Okay, so back to more of this regulation. When a cell is working correctly, we have also discovered it has several checkpoints throughout the cell cycle. Let me show you a picture, and I'll come back to that. So see the little stop signs? So they have found a time in the life of the cell in the beginning of G1 where it's just split, right? It's a new cell. If the DNA is damaged, the chemicals like self-assess themselves. And if the cell is screwed up, the cell sometimes it'll stop. It will not ever move on, do its job. It'll probably just get destroyed. It'll probably get eaten up by other cells, die and recycled. Okay? But if everything's okay in G1 and it gets past this restriction point and it's necessary for this cell to divide, then it starts making its synthesis. And if it screws up during that, it'll stop. If it gets its DNA copied and it's all good, it progresses to G2. But then if the cell realizes, oh no, we got a problem. We're missing a chromosome, right? What if that happened? It's going to stop. So the cells are amazing in controlling that they don't cause cancer, but even still there could be problems where they do keep growing. And then the problem is, you guys think about this, is one cell gets screwed up and it doesn't die and it's got this cancer genes in it because of mutations. It copies, and then its babies, its daughter cells, have the same mess up, right? And then they copy, so it's this awful thing that just keeps going. Okay, now the way to fight cancer, the best way, is to be what? You'd be preventative, right? You'd be preventative. So you don't put yourself in situations where you're around carcinogens. Now, for the vocab quiz, you might have remembered you got mutagenic chemicals. You also have carcinogenic chemicals. This is an adjective, okay? Austin, you with me, man? This is an adjective. So something, it's a chemical or something that causes a mutation is a mutagenic chemical. Can I also just call it a mutagen? Now that's a noun, right? Mutagen's a noun. Okay? A carcinogen, noun. Okay, so be able to go back and forth between those. Now let's get this straight. What does a mutagen do? Yell it out, you guys. What's a mutagen do? It mutates what? The DNA. It screws with the sequence of the A's, T's, C's, and G's. And if the sequence is screwed up, then the protein that it codes for might be screwed up, right? Okay, now what's a carcinogen? Is a carcinogen a type of mutagen? Yes. Come on, you guys, wake up. We got to get this straight right now. Okay, so carcinogen is a mutation of the DNA that causes what? What? Cancer. It causes the cell to divide when it's not supposed to. The cell is messed up because there's a mutation. Maybe it's not making the kinase. Maybe it's not making the cyclin it needs. Maybe it's something else with the checkpoint. Okay? Now, back to the prevention. So we know smoking, and it doesn't matter what you're smoking. If you're inhaling smoke, even hanging out at a barbecue, those are carcinogens. Okay? But it is utterly ridiculous, you guys, I hate to be so blunt, to think that smoking marijuana, for example, is not as harmful as smoking nicotine or any other whole cigarettes, right? For a while, maybe you guys are over this. This misconception is going around for a while. Oh, it's natural. So is nicotine, you guys. So is tobacco. So anyway, smoke is harmful, period. You guys know that? Well, we know that maybe more than some other people because we live in a fire area, right? So we're told constantly. But some people don't live in an area where there's fires are common. But anyway, radiation and viruses also. So avoiding spreading some viruses. Back to health. What about some of the STDs? Have we gotten to that subject at all, my freshmen in here for health? A little bit, yeah. And then my sophomores, you remember. So some viruses, because viruses cut up DNA, they mess with cells, so they can cause mutations, okay? And there's just lots of other chemicals and things that are very harsh and hazardous to us. Then the other problem with cancer is it's not a foreign thing, right? Think about, how does your immune system work? You get a virus, you get a bacteria, what does your immune system do? Fights it, it eats it, it breaks it up, it gets rid of it. What's the deal with the cancer cells? Whose cells are they? They're your cells. They're your cells. So how is your immune system going to recognize it's your cell, it doesn't want to attack itself, right? So it's very difficult to fight. Thankfully, though, with new technology, new inventions and things, we have medicines now that help people deal with the symptoms. So how do we fight cancer? Chemotherapy, so this is poison. What else? Do we have radiation treatment too? Yep. So we have to kill what? We have to kill your cells. And we have to kill or cut them out. That's the best situation when they're all stuck together and we just cut them out. And we're going to take a bunch of good cells to make sure that we didn't miss any of the cancerous cells. So it's tough. It's a tough disease. What else did I tell you? I'll think of other stuff. Okay, so this is melanoma. This is a bad skin cancer. And so back to that prevention, you guys. you've got to be paying attention to your body, not just because of cancer. There's all different things that you want to be aware of, and you want to be trying to be as healthy as you can, hopefully, okay? But checking your skin, protecting your skin. Males in here, I don't know if you guys realize this, but it's like if smoking males, if they make it and live to like in their 40s, they will start getting bladder cancer. Males that live to at least in their 60s, 90% of them that are chronic smokers will get bladder cancer. Now, it's kind of a cool way to treat bladder cancer. They take a little capsule, so they don't have to irradiate your whole body, but they take little microscopic capsules of chemotherapy stuff, and they inject it through your urethra and drop it into your bladder. Not killing all those healthy cells. Sounds very pleasant, huh, gentlemen? So, smoking causes lots and lots of stuff. Now, females, sorry to pick on my males, females, all of us, right? We put ourselves in these positions to avoid it. Do it. Avoid it. Don't be making these decisions. And then it's so tough because we live for the short term. Oh, well, maybe that'll happen a long time from now. Believe me, a long time from now happens before you know it. And then you know people probably, maybe grandmas and grandpas that wish they had stopped smoking sooner. Hopefully they've stopped now. So that's another thing, you guys. Get some more information. You get more information from me. If you want to go do a heart-to-heart talk with some of these people you love and care about, I can kind of guide you with maybe how to get a conversation like that going. But that's what's so amazing with the body. People stop negative things, your body will start to heal up and get in a lot better shape when you stop the negativeness. So anyway, this is mostly controllable, and I'm not just throwing that word around. There is most of the cancer that is caused is from the environment. It's from our choices. It's not genetic. There is some genetic cancer caused, but most of it you guys can avoid. And we'll get to more on this in a couple more days. But any questions before I move on, though? Okay, so you guys, back to the cell knowing when to stop. And that's what we really want to figure out. Why won't these things stop, and how can we get them to stop? Normal, healthy cells, actually when they contact each other, when they're next to each other, that is also a signal that tells the cell to either make more of these chemicals or stop making these chemicals. Do not divide. So there's that external stimulus of contact, and that's why when you guys cut yourself, your skin grows back, and then it stops. You don't get a big lump of skin. You sometimes get a little scar tissue where there's some confusion on how it was growing back. And but anyway, so what happens is this is what the cancers do. They start piling up on top of each other. So, like I said, they look different. They're not doing their jobs. Once they divide, they go straight into in G1 for just a little bit, straight to synthesis. So they are just pulling resources from the body, which is basically a disease. Also, physically, are they pushing on things? Are they stopping? How are they influencing the body? And then the worst thing that can happen is they start spreading, right? And what happens here, you can see this picture. We got, here's a skin cancer one. And it starts growing, and this could it's a blow up. So this simply could be like the size of a mole on your body. And a lot of moles are fine. Don't panic on me, but you should be checking your skin and paying attention. And if you see things growing, you need to show your doctor. Show your parents first, talk to them. But if things seem to be changing shape or size, you need to have them looked at. Hold on. But so then they keep growing, and then what happens is we have all this circulatory system and the lymphatic system, the lymph nodes and stuff. So all this little highways running through our bodies. And if one gets in there, it gets circulated, it'll get lodged someplace else because it's not nicely shaped either, and other cells aren't detecting that it's a problem. and then you'll get more and more tumors in different places. So that's called, these types of tumors are known as malignant tumors, and what they do to spread is called metastasize. Was there a question? Uh-huh.
I once had
Yeah.